Okay guys, this is the review for Dragon Ball Super Episode 4. As has been the running theme with Dragon Ball Super, not a whole lot has happened this episode. We see Beerus and Whis heading over to Kaio's planet. We see people mingling at Bulma's party on the ship. We see the Pilaf gang, which takes up the bulk of the episode. They pick up the Dragon Balls on the radar and find out that they're on Bulma's ship. So then they stow aboard the ship, hang out with Trunks and Goten, and then the episode ends with Kaio informing Goku about Beerus. Alright, let's go ahead and get the complaints out of the way because this is me, and of course I have complaints. Does anyone else feel that Beerus is becoming a little one note? Every single episode he has been in, they have made some reference to him eating food and being pretty picky about the food he eats. Every fucking episode. I mean, I know in Battle of Gods he was really pleased about the food on Earth, but that wasn't like the entirety of his character. And here it seems to be all they have to work with. So Beerus has been really one-dimensional in this series so far, and considering he was my favorite part of Battle of Gods, it's really disappointing to see that. The second thing that really bothered me in this episode was the fact that we got no explanation for why Pilaf and Mai and Shu are kids. I mean, yeah, I've seen Battle of Gods. I know what happened. But since this show is dragging things out so far, this is a perfect opportunity for them to expand on these things. In fact, this is the second time now where they've completely missed this opportunity. First, they haven't explained why Kaio's planet is back, and yes, I know, I've read the manga chapter and they explain that, but we're talking about the show here, and the show needs to stand on its own. Now, this time around, they make no effort to explain the Pilaf gang being kids. And this is really shitty storytelling. I brought up in my last video that this series kinda needs to treat itself as if Battle of Gods never existed, and just tell a natural flowing story. But part of telling a story is that you need to explain important things as they're brought up. And I would consider showing classic characters now as kids who were previously adults and not giving an explanation for this in that first episode they're introduced like that is piss poor storytelling. The series really needs to make up its mind on like how it wants to tell this story. You can either tell it from the perspective that Battle of Gods never existed and assume this is all fresh information to the new viewers. Or you can assume that everyone's already seen Battle of Gods, knows all this information, and possibly fill these bits of information in later. You can't do it both fucking ways. And my last major complaint with this episode is just regurgitating the same information over again. There's a whole scene at the end where Kaio was warning Goku about Beerus, explaining the whole God of Destruction thing, telling him how powerful he is, how he shouldn't get involved, and most of this information has already been set up by the Kaioshins. So it's literally shit we've already heard. Once again, this is not good storytelling. And really that one scene is the only thing that's really dragging the pacing down for this episode. Now on to the things I actually like. First off, the artistic direction this episode took. Now the animation for this episode was fairly different from what we've seen in the previous episodes, and it seems to be a bit divisive among the fans. I, for one, really like what they did here. What they did with the animation in this episode was when a character was in the foreground, they'd be drawn with much thicker line work. And then characters in the background had the normal thinner line art. And they actually uses a pretty cool effect. There's a scene with Mai and Shu in the foreground and they have the thick outlines. And in the background we have Pilaf holding the dragon radar at them, but his line work is completely normal. When Beerus and Whis first get to Kaio's planet, Whis has the thicker black lines, and then Beerus behind him has the thinner line work. And there was also some cool perspective shots where they changed the line work mid-scene. Like there was a close-up of Pilaf where he's going on some sort of rant about something and has the thick black line work. Then the camera pulls itself out and lowers the angle, and as it does, the line work thins out. Another cool scene that they did this in was when Goku was training on Kaio's planet. It starts off with a close-up of Goku's face, thick black lines, pulls out, line work thins, Goku puts his hands in front of him for the Kamehameha, and the line work on his hands is super thick while the rest is just normal thin line work. And as he pulls his hands back, the line work thins out. I thought it had a really cool look to it and gave the series some style, something the series has really been lacking so far. And while talking about the art direction, this episode was fairly on model. The visuals of the last episode was fucking garbage. Here there were only like maybe one or two scenes where I was just like, oh, that looks a little weird. And everything was pretty much on point. So yeah, I really like this style, and I really hope that this becomes a more consistent thing throughout the rest of the series. The second thing I really liked was pretty much all the scenes with the Pilaf gang. I fucking love the Pilaf gang. They're some of my favorite characters in the entire franchise. And every scene they were in was just pure delight for me. Now this doesn't mean I'm not a little worried, because in Battle of Gods, I thought they were a complete waste of space. They did not need to be in Battle of Gods. If you remove them from Battle of Gods, it would not affect the story of Battle of Gods whatsoever. They served zero purpose in that story, and I'm worried that that's going to happen again for this arc of Dragon Ball. And the last thing I really enjoyed was that tiny little training sequence with Vegeta. One of Bulma's Capsule Corp assistants walks into his training room, telling him that Bulma wants him to show up at her goddamn birthday party. And Vegeta tells her off, and Bulma freaks out on him. But the thing I really liked about about this scene is that it acknowledges that the Capsule Corp employees are aware that their boss, the richest woman in the goddamn world, is married to this buff midget who walks around in armor and blows shit up. So it was really interesting to me to see that little exchange. So yeah, overall solid episode, not a whole lot to really talk about. The next episode is going to have Goku versus Beer, so hopefully that's a bit more interesting. Until then, I'm Zeon. Peace out.